Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm actually just so thrilled to be here. Not only do I know Nita as a fellow author for Mango Publishing, but she's just a dear friend. And I have so much respect, Nita, for all of your work and who you are personally. And I love this book. I'm going to put it right up here. So no place of honor. Um, Nita, I'm very honored to get to be here for this book launch party. And I want to start with, which is probably an obvious question, but would you be willing to read us an excerpt from your book, one or two little excerpts that you would like?
Sure, absolutely. That's always a good place to start. Give people a
Yeah.
little taste of what it's like. And I'm just going to start at the beginning with the introduction because it sort of explains how it began. The book has a number of origins, but this is really where it started. So, introduction. On a bright Saturday morning, as I ran along the Olentangy Trail with some other members of our PACE group, the conversation turned to meditation. It might as easily have turned to which Central Ohio restaurant we would go to for breakfast, upcoming races, or last week's Buckeye football game. Instead, a woman asked me about my practice. I do sitting meditation, I said, but I also meditate while I run. I was meditating just now. That's a thing? Another woman asked. It is for me, I explained. Today I'm noticing my left foot. When my mind wanders, I gently bring it back. The whole run? Well, most of it. How long can you think about your foot? Isn't that boring? I don't think about my foot. I experience it. I notice the sensation of my foot hitting the ground. I observe any changes. I pay attention to how my foot feels in my shoe. I sense if it hits harder than my right. When my mind wanders, I count my footfalls. And when I pay close attention, it's not boring at all. Silence. Eventually, someone brought up breakfast. But a few weeks later, the woman who initially asked approached me. I tried your left foot meditation. It's interesting. I rarely pay attention to my feet. Since I tried it, I feel more relaxed when I run. She thanked me. That brief conversation led to this book. The woman, like many other people I've talked to, found the notion of movement meditation odd, but also appealing. Movement meditation was worth exploring and explaining. Of course, I didn't create movement meditation. Centuries-old traditions embrace it. But for that woman, it was new. What I didn't tell my sister runner was that this path of noticing, whether it be her left foot, her breath, or her thinking, is about much more than physical activity. Meditation might make her a better runner, or someone else a better golfer, tennis player, dancer, gymnast, or weightlifter. But more importantly, consistent practice might lead her to insight, the kind that can enhance daily life. It might even free her from suffering, a pain she might not even know she has. And if one person finds that, it's worth any effort. And then I'll just read a bit from the next section, which is possibly the most important part of the book, which is called Why Bother? Because this is a question I get a lot about why do we do this? So I start to try to explain it. I go into detail later in the book about the physical benefits, the mental health benefits, the cognitive benefits of both movement and meditation. But I just start with that question because let's get it out of the room. So, if you're like most people, including me, you exercise for a variety of reasons. You're depressed, so you exercise to cheer up, or you're anxious and you want to calm down. Maybe you hope to relax or zone out. Perhaps you seek bliss and joy and escape from your troubles, or you want to feel strong. Then again, you might just want to look fabulous in your swimsuit. No shame in that. The beach beckons. Plus, you're already busy. There's the partner and the kids and the dog. You need to mow the lawn. The work project is still due, and those groceries aren't going to shop for themselves. So why add what sounds like another tweak? Your mind gets a workout every day, all day long. Isn't exercise a time to give it a rest? Why pile on what seems like another layer on top of your current exercise routine? After all, meditation of any sort takes energy, time, grit, determination, and discipline. As contemporary Buddhist monk Bhante Gunaratana said in his book Mindfulness in Plain English, meditation takes gumption. Why on earth would you want to infuse your movement with something that requires effort and dedication? There are a host of reasons. You're probably already aware of the many ways movement improves your life. Meditation enhances that. Studies on people who meditate show the physical, emotional, and cognitive benefits ranging from improved athletic performance to growing new brain cells. Combine the two for a supercharged growth recipe. But there's an even more compelling reason to add meditation to your movement routine: freedom. Beneath any desire you may have to relax, zone out, toughen up, and under that wish to look and feel physically and mentally better lies the urge for freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from suffering. And that, freedom from suffering, is the main reason I bother. During the winter after I turned 49, a social media post by a high school friend caught my attention. It read, "Call me crazy, but this running is getting to be fun." I did indeed think she was crazy, but she also looked like she was having fun, and I was definitely not having fun. The chronic depression that had plagued me most of my life resurfaced after 7 loved ones, including my 24-year-old niece and my mother, all died during the same year. That friend's social media post found me on the couch. I don't remember Bon Bon specifically, but excess food had become the anchor in my wellness plan. It caused my weight to balloon. Exercise seemed long behind me, and I didn't believe it would help anyway. I was suffering so much. I wasn't sure I wanted to stay on the planet. Meanwhile, that high school friend kept running. And as I watched her gradual progress, principles I knew from years of meditation and previous stints of movement resurfaced. The change in her and the shift I felt was familiar, impermanence. Her progress and my interest reflected the natural ebb and flow that's always happening, which many of us never notice. Her online training plan said 60 seconds of jogging. That's not all it said, but that phrase stuck like a mantra. And as winter wore on, my curiosity grew. One March weekday, when my husband Ed and most of the neighbors were at work, I pulled on faded, tight workout clothes, picked up a digital kitchen timer, leashed up our yellow Labrador retriever Morgan, and walked to a secluded ravine where no one could see me. I set the timer for 60 seconds, then stood long enough for the dog to wander away and water a nearby shrub. When I finally hit the timer button, it set in motion a series of changes so huge I can hardly believe them myself. But running was tough. And in my first book, Depression Hates a Moving Target, I shared how a congenital ankle defect, my weight, one specifically unhelpful medical professional, and my incessant negative chattering thoughts threatened to derail me. Some days I still hear that familiar refrain, "Who do you think you are?" But I feel a sense of gratitude that before I found running, I'd already been meditating for 15 years. I also had a solid writing practice, a strong community, several great teachers, mental health medications, and therapy, and movement rounded out that toolkit. And I quickly realized I could meditate while I ran. So meditative skills meditative skills keep me going when willpower fails. And that's the thing that I really brought with this book is how the combination of the two can just make this really powerful combination, a powerful activity beyond just either meditation or movement. So that's a little flavor of it.
Nita, thank you so much for that. I hope other people like me really enjoyed, it's such a great opening, and you are a master at weaving in your personal story, which I love because it really helps me to relate to everything that you're sharing. And so on that note, what I'd really love us to start with is, will you tell us why this book for you and right now? What prompted you to write this book right now?
Well, that's a great question because this wasn't the book I was going to write. This wasn't it. But you know how things weave, they twist and turn. I have been working for many, many years on a book that will get published someday, somehow. A book of daily practices, daily mindfulness practices, just 366 because of leap day. Um, Things you can do every single day in just a few minutes to be mindful. So stay tuned. But my first book, when you're working with a publisher, you get to do what you want to a certain extent. And the first book, the audience was mostly running and mental health. It had a broader audience than that too, but that was the main audience. And so they wanted something that would capture that audience without just me completely jumping to pure meditation. Because while I mention meditation in Depression Hates a Moving Target, it's not the main thread of the book. It's not, the running and the how I run and all the obstacles I faced and overcoming those and the ways in which it improved my mental health. That's that story. And so, so I had, in thinking about this other book, which I was, working on kind of on the side as I was promoting my first book, I started posting these little videos on Instagram. They're about a minute and a half, maybe. I go down in the ravine where I started running with my dog, our current dog, Scarlet. And I talk about, we're going to go for a walk or we're going to go for a run. And this is what I'm going to use as my object of meditation. This is how I'm going to meditate while I'm doing this activity. Thinking again about just the mindfulness aspect of it. And so when I was talking to my editor at Mango Publishing, Brenda Knight, about next books, different projects. I mean, because she tries to take a long view. So you're sort of looking at what are we looking at in the next couple of years, things like that. It's wonderful. Mango has been really good with that. She kind of cocked her head. She goes, "What about those little ravine videos you're doing? What do you think about that?" And it was very much kind of I could have had a V8 moment to say, is anybody old enough to remember that? Like, oh my God, of course. That's exactly, and then it's not like the whole book took shape, but it was so obvious that was the next thing, because that was the piece that was really missing from Depression Hates a Moving Target, was how much I just had been meditating for 30 years and I have this training as an instructor, how much it was just a part of what I was doing, but I was so focused on the mental health that I didn't give a lot of how to. So it's almost like they're sister books, because this is much more of the how to, and there's a lot more activity than just running in the book. A lot of my examples are running because I'm a runner. That's just how I do it. But we tried to branch out and include all kinds of different sports. And so yeah, that's how it came out. It was Brenda like, "What about those videos?" Yeah, exactly. And boom, and I was in contract, and off we go.
I love that. I love that. And how was the writing process for you?
Well, at first, it was very much like downloading everything I'd heard from a number of meditation teachers, because the book is essentially a book about how to meditate. Aw, my brother. Yeah. Thank you, Jim. It's really just a book about meditation, and you could substitute sitting for the activity, the posture, and that's the one you usually hear of. You hear about, you sit with your spine upright, you're relaxed but alert, things like that. And so in this book, I simply changed the posture. And so I researched, I read, I think at one point I had 47 books out of the library. The librarian but there's in the acknowledgements, there's like 4 librarians in the acknowledgements, because I need more books. So I can get this one, pull it, it was just crazy. And so I just, pulled from all that. And then of course, what happens often is you write this first draft and I revise it. And then I hire my own editor that's happens to be a Zen master, which is also handy, also as an NEA grant recipient, which is very handy. And then he reviewed it. And then he said, "Well, this is all really interesting, but and everything you need to say is in this book and it's all in the wrong order." And so I went, "Oh," and I had a few really hard moments, because you're on deadline. You have a deadline with the publisher, and I thought I was much further along in the process. So yeah, so that's how that went. And then I eventually did what I do, which is I printed out in 6-point type and paste it to the walls of I have a wonderful husband. So I literally printed it in 6-point type and pasted it around the
Whoa.
walls of our house. And then with a magnifying glass, I would go and then cut pieces of it and put them in the right place. And then I had to, jigsaw puzzle it, because I'd never written a how-to book. And there's kind of a formula. You don't just, feed people from a fire hose. You kind of creep in. And so that's what I did. Yeah.
Oh,
So
Nita, that's great. I love that you told that. And gosh, I wish we had a photo of you in the
I do. It's on, you'd have to scroll way
Oh.
back on Instagram. It's probably I would have been January or February. There's
Oh,
pictures of the living room.
awesome. It's at Nita Sweeney, right?
It's just Nita Sweeney. I mean, Nita Sweeney everywhere. Anyway, if you want to see pictures of our house. And we were at the same time, we were having other stuff done. And so we had happened to take all the pictures down off the walls because we were doing other stuff. So we just replaced all the pictures with essentially this book all over our living room and kind of little nook area. So
Thank you for indulging me in that question, because it's really one of the things that I was so struck by, and anyone else who's read the book will agree with me, is the amount of research and the amount of sort of study that is obvious in it. And for me, I know, like, I love, and I mentioned this, that I love your stories. You're such a beautiful storyteller. And there was so much in here that I just felt so secure in the knowledge that I was reading about, because you can tell you've really done your homework on all of it. So kudos.
thank you. I really worked hard on that because I wanted it to be credible. I mean, I have the things I have studied from other teachers, but there's so much science, and I'm not a scientist. I'm trained as a lawyer, trained as a journalist, a creative writer. So I relied on other people's research to back up what I knew worked and what I had heard worked and things like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, because I happen to know something about you personally that I know that you love to bust the myths around meditation. And it's actually one of my favorite things about you and your work. And I, as a 30-year meditator myself, I think it's so important. And so I wanted to make sure that we brought that in right here, near the beginning of this talk. And I'm just going to let you take it from there. Whichever myth you want to start with, please do.
Yeah, well, the first one that's obvious, which I won't go into because I wrote a book about it, is that you don't have to sit still to meditate. So that's, read the book. But that's the short answer there. But the second thing, which is actually the first thing, is that you have to force your mind to be quiet. So many people say to me, I can't meditate because my mind won't be still, or I can't meditate because I can't quiet my mind. My mind is too busy. And my response to that is, well, that's your mind's job, is to think thoughts. That's the brain's job. And so, yes, your mind, you may create conditions to help your mind slow, to help your thinking calm down, but it's not, it's really difficult, because as soon as you start trying to force it, you're in this fight, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so so that's probably the biggest myth, is that I have to quiet my mind. And I think I'm not sure I really address this fully. These books are, as many books are, it could be 3 times as long if you went into all the rabbit holes you could go down. And one of those is the fact that for many of us, our thoughts are uncomfortable. They can be scary. They can be feel dangerous even. And so so I often think that there's something else behind that, but I don't usually go into that until maybe I've spent some time with somebody, because I'm not a therapist either. But so the meditation practice is a way to create an environment in which your mind can learn to calm down. It quiets on its own. You don't have to force it. So that's the big number one myth. And the other one that I don't actually hear as much, and I don't think we'll probably hear from this audience, but I'll just mention it because it is something that I have encountered over the years. And that's the fact that you don't have to become anything to meditate. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to worship anything. I think a lot of people think that they're going to end up, that they're going to be asked to like worship the Buddha or become Buddhists or, Hindus or whatever form of meditation. There's tons of forms of meditation. And so it's not like that at all. Especially in my book, I've explained where it comes from, which for me is a Buddhist history. My teachers have been trained in Buddhism, but it's more of I've kind of tried to pull it out of any trappings and put it in a more, I don't know if you call it secular is the right word, because it's not a religion anyway, but you know what I mean? It's something like a more generic background so that anyone can do it. And quite frankly, in the meditation that I do that is very much a Buddhist meditation. I mean, we have Catholic priests who meditate. We have very Christian religious people. I mean, in the Sage Institute, where I took my meditation leader training, one of the women was in seminary, and she was in seminary at the same time she was taking the training to become an ordained minister. So it's a very it's like tofu, it takes on whatever flavor you add to it. So that's kind of what this is. It's just you bring yourself to it, and then it's a way for you to see yourself more clearly. And so for some people, it makes them more religious or more of an activist or more of a whatever. And so that's another big myth that used to, especially when I first started teaching meditation in the early 2000s, I would get that kind of, but I don't want to be a Buddhist. And I'd say, well, good, because you don't have to.
Oh, Nita, those were wonderful and so important. And again, it is something that I've appreciated about you and your work is, I was thinking of the term like sort of like, every man or every woman. It's like it's the way that you make it so accessible, and you give 1,000 different ways that it could look and situations. And I think that's so important. I hear that myself all the time, that, my life has to look a certain way, or I have to be a certain kind of person, or, I can't quite all of those things. And so thank you for busting those myths for us. That was great.
Thank you for asking about it. Cause that's again, that's just a thing that I want people to know. I think it's one of the most important things is that it's accessible and it's adaptable. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. Once you understand the very basic framework, then it becomes, there's as many options as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I know we talked about this in advance, that in a few minutes, not quite yet, but in a few minutes, we are going to give people a bit of a practical experience, which I'm excited because I think that probably more than anything, I know when we get to experience something ourselves, that really anchors it in a new way. So, but before that, I want to ask you about something else from your book that really struck me. It was one of the parts of your book that resonated deeply with me. There's a chapter on emotion. And in that, I think you talk about untangling the web of emotions. And you tell a very, very poignant and beautiful story about your father's last few months before he died. Can you speak to that a little bit, whatever aspect of that you want? Because I found that really powerful.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I was in a very fortunate, it didn't feel fortunate at the time, but I had been an attorney for about 10 years, and I had a major depressive episode. And so at the time our father was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, I was not working. I was sort of sitting at home going, what am I going to do with myself? And what he really wanted to do was play golf. He just wanted to play golf on these really crappy golf courses around Central. I mean, not, there are great golf courses. I mean, Muirfield is in, but he liked to play what I call the goat pastures, these cheap courses that were, just not great. And so we would meet, I think we met once a week or sometimes twice a week, and just play. And so I got to spend all this time with him. And I I don't know, it's funny, I've written about that. That was actually the first book I tried to get published and have it, because I just think it's not done yet. I think that's what I just haven't quite, found the story. And it wasn't so much what we said, but it was just the time of being together and the motions of the golf and the way get in the cart and then you move along. And then there were some very funny things, like one time a groundhog stole his golf ball and he went ballistic over it. It was absolutely hysterical. But so that time, but what I was able to do, because I had all these thoughts that were so uncomfortable, because he was dying, but yet he didn't look like, I mean, he didn't look like he was dying until he sort of fell off a cliff. I mean, it was very gradual, and then boom. And so there was sort of this denial, and I would have all those thoughts. And then I would have my emotions of my own situation. What am I going to do with my life? And who am I? Because I'd been Nita Sweeney, attorney at law for all these years. And so it was very confusing. And I was so grateful that I had this practice, which my teacher Shinzen Young had shared, and other people have shared it, but Shinzen said it in a way that made the most sense to me. He said, emotions are made up of thoughts and body sensations. So let's say sadness. There's the physical sensation in the body of sadness. It's often, for me, it's often in my chest. It's a heaviness in my chest, might be in my throat a little bit. And then there's the thoughts of, this person isn't going to be here, or what if I say the wrong thing, or what am I supposed to say? I remember asking, Marcia Rose was one of the teachers I had to stay with, and I asked her, like, I don't know who to be. And she sort of said, you just have to be yourself. I don't know what to do with this time with him, and things like that. And so by being able to pay very close attention to what was going on with my body and what was going on with my thinking, it helped me be really present to my father. So I was actually with my father as opposed to all these thoughts, because I was able to separate out sadness into what was in my body, and also the sad thoughts. And that ability to sort of see them coming and just let them go through helped me not be as kind of in as much pain that I talked about suffering. I read about suffering, because that's the suffering, is where you're trying to control it, or you're trying to not feel it. You push it away or you pull it. And so during that process, that's what I did. I meditated a lot of the time. When we were golfing, I was just sitting there trying to just fully be with my own emotions, and also be present to him too, because he didn't want to talk about it. He just wanted to play golf. He didn't want a tombstone. He didn't want, they had told him, get your affairs in order. And until the near the end, he didn't have any treatment either. He did eventually decide to do that, I think, once his physical health kind of caught up with him. I really think he was in denial a long time too, because he seemed so fine, and then boom, he just wasn't. So that process made our time together better, and it made me really get that whole way, a completely different way to be with emotions than what we usually hear in our culture about, think positive, or let it go. I know there's just lots of things. And I was just like, just be with it and let it go through you.
Wow, Nita, thank you so much. I just loved hearing more about that too. I loved hearing a little bit more of the background of that. And it brought up for me something that in my own life that I feel like has been probably the biggest gift of meditation, which is being able to be present with the people I love. It's really important to me to have connection and deep relationships. And when we're lost in that tangle, as you call it, it's nearly impossible to truly be connected, I think, at least in my experience. And for you to have that gift that you gave yourself because of your practice, that gift of really being with your father, I mean, that.
Thank you. I just feel so grateful. Like I said, I'd had a nervous breakdown, and you don't want to be grateful for that. But if not for that, I would have been, oh gosh, I'm really sorry that you're dying, Dad, but I'm this important partner in a law firm, and I have to be all over this. That's not how I thought of it. but that's kind of how it would have been because that's what we do. And I wouldn't have thought that it was bad because it wasn't. That's just who I was and what I
Yeah.
did. And so, in some ways, my mental illness gave me the gift of time with him, and that's not something everybody gets. They don't. And so I am forever grateful with that because it's just that's just where I happen to be in my life. And literally, if he had gotten sick a year before that, I would not have spent that time. I just wouldn't have. I wouldn't have. It wouldn't have even occurred to me because I had a job. I had the things I did. That was my personality. That was my, that's who I was. That's what I did. And so, yeah. So it was a gift. But the meditation, you're right. That was it. So anyway, I kind of went on.
Oh,
I
no,
want
no,
to say
no.
real quick. We haven't mentioned Sherry's book, which is behind her, called
Oh,
Say It Now. And when she talks about heart-centered, her book it's so important because it's about giving people the gift of love now while they're still alive, as opposed to waiting until they're gone. And it is like one of the best books. It's just, and she has all these little creative ideas, like love lists and just cool little things that she creates. So don't forget to take a look at Sherry's book, Say It Now, because it's just a
oh,
wonderful book.
Nita, you are so generous. You are so
Well,
generous.
it's true. I mean, you're welcome, and it's true.
Well, thank you. And I think this is a great time to do a practical exercise with people.
Sure, that'd be great. Okay, so I can't see you all. You have your screens turned off, and that's good. That's fine. So what I usually do is we're actually going to do a just real quick, easy little meditation, and I use my left foot, and I'm going to instruct you to use your foot, whichever foot you prefer. I use my left foot because I have oh good, they put
Oh,
Sherry's book in the, yeah, thank you, New Renaissance. That's so sweet. Um, um, but I have a congenital defect, which makes it was one of the challenges in my ankle. Let me back up. I have a congenital defect in my ankle that was one of the challenges with running. And so I tend to use my left foot because I have more sensations in that left foot than I do my right foot. So wherever you are, you can close your eyes if you'd like to, or you can leave them open, but kind of unfocused probably because we're just going to do this easy little practice. And start by noticing your foot. Just take your mind and put your awareness on your foot. I'm going to use, again, I'll use my left foot. And get curious. What is foot? What does foot feel like? So if you have shoes on, you might feel your foot in your shoe. You might feel the shoe against your foot. And if you have trouble bringing your attention to your foot, wiggle your toes for just a little bit until you get your attention there. And then once you have your attention there, just place your attention there just for a minute. What does that feel like? Is it tingling? Is it hot? Cold? Is it soft? Do you feel any sharpness? Or something smooth? And once you've sensed into your foot, very slowly raise your toes off the ground. Keep your heel on the ground. Just lift your toes up and then put them back down. And just keep doing that. Just very slowly raise your toes off the ground and put them back down. And as you do that, notice if anything changes. You might feel some tension in your ankle. You might notice that when your foot is on the floor, you can feel the bottom of your foot, like the bottom of your toes. And when you raise it up, that sensation disappears. Just keep lowering and raising the front of your foot and just be curious about what that feels like. Okay, go ahead and put your foot back down and relax, and you can come back here. What I'm what I'm trying to do with this, there's a number of things because you're pointing your attention, you're learning how to point your attention to a particular part of your body because you can use any of your senses as an object of meditation. And you can use your thoughts, but they're a little sticky. So with this, we used body sensation, but you can use your vision. A lot of times when I run, I love the color green in nature. And so I'll notice all the colors of green, the shades of green, the shapes of like leaves and different things that are in green, and also the absence of green. If, if I'm in an area that doesn't have green. I use hearing in the early morning, bird song. Here in Central Ohio, we have a lot of birds, and I'll listen for bird song and then the absence of bird song. And I'm not trying to identify the birds. I'm just listening to the sound, letting it come in and being with the shape of that sound. I don't usually do this when I guess I do sometimes when I'm running, but you can use your taste. So eating meditation is a thing. And again, it's the texture of the food, the taste of the food, the temperature of the food. Scent is a powerful one. In the spring here, we have lilacs. And if I'm running an area where there's a lot of lilacs, I love to just let that scent arise and then notice it pass away. And then again, so those are kind of the big four that I use. And then, of course, the touch sense, the felt sense, that's sort of what we did with the toes, with the foot. That felt sense, which your breath is also a felt sense. It's where you feel your breath coming in and out of your body. So that's the big five of the senses. And then, like I said, you can also use your thoughts. You can meditate on your thoughts. It's tricky. You have to get the focus down first. And I go into a lot of that in the book too. So yeah, it's the same thing though. It's just that practice. And gently bringing your mind back anytime it wanders. Very gently bringing it back anytime it wanders. So that's really the basic practice, is just bringing awareness to whatever your experience is. And the only thing you experience is your thoughts and your body sensations. That's your experience. And so you have those kind of 6 things, all your senses and your thoughts. And then you can use them in combination. You can use them individually. It's really unlimited. And then the quality of mind, which I actually didn't talk about yet, which is very important, is equanimity. So when you're doing all this, you're trying to be curious, trying to remain calm, or noticing if you're not, and just continuing to bring yourself back to that place of letting whatever experience is be the way it is. So that we're not trying to push or pull on those sensations. We're just noticing them exactly as they are. And in other areas of life, you're going to push and pull. In other areas of life, you're going to, make things happen and do stuff like that, take action. But this is a little experiment. This is a little container that you create for yourself to just see what you are in this process.
Nita, I love what you just said too about that, that we're not trying to change anything. We're not trying to do anything. We're not, you didn't use this word, but for me, I was thinking, there's no effort, which.
Not in this practice. But what happens, okay, Sherry, what happens though, okay, so I'm a runner. I run long distances, crazy long distances for fun. It's ridiculous. And there's effort in that. Yeah. But what you learn from this is to use exactly the amount of effort that you need and no more. because I don't have, now I do have, I'm not perfect at this. So I do have this extra stuff going on. But when I can let it drop away and only use the effort I need, I'm so much more efficient. I don't get tired as long. And in the research in this book, there's actually a section on performance, because I kind of stumbled down the rabbit hole of athletic performance just because I kept coming up, I Google mindfulness, and all these performance coaches would come, these, athletic coaches would come up, and their books would come up. And so I started following, and there's so many of them that talk about how the efficiency that you learn with your energy through meditation. And I thought that was brilliant, because that's what you do, is you learn how to just use that much energy. And again, I'm a work in progress. There's still lots to do. There's plenty of complaining and groaning and way too much effort in what I do, but I don't care. It's good, because it's better than it would be if I didn't have this practice.
Oh, Nita, this has been so wonderful. And I have a whole lot more questions myself, but I know we're down to just about the last 10 minutes. And I want to make sure that we have a chance for people here to, to ask questions, maybe to comment on something that you said, whatever anyone wants. It would be wonderful to have people get to ask Nita anything. And to do so, I mean, you can just click on the reactions button at the bottom, and there's a raise hand button if you want to do that, so we know.
I'll start off with a question.
Oh, good. I was like, I've stumped them all. Oh no.
I am curious. I am not a runner. Could you tell us first, what is an ultra marathoner? I'm very curious to know what that is. And then when was the last time you did a marathon? I'm just curious for myself.
Yes. So, okay. So, and let me back up, because there's actually a question under that question that you didn't ask. This book is not a running book. There are a lot of examples in it about running, because that's what I do. But there are also examples from people who do laser tag, who meditate while they're doing laser tag, disc golf, sailing boats, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which blew my mind. I mean, this, they find this space to do this, and they figured it out. So, so just let me say that caveat, because I kind of got into that. I was in another Zoom much earlier today that was very running, and I kind of forgot to, this book is not totally. So yeah, so my an ultra marathon is anything longer than a marathon. So it's 26.2 miles is a marathon. So technically 26.3 miles is an ultra marathon. And the I've done 2 ultra marathons, and they are they were 31, we say 31 and change, so it's like 31 point something miles. So 50K is the shortest distance that most ultra marathons are. And my most recent ultra marathon was in June of this year, and my most recent marathon was back in I want to say it was 2018. Is that right? Yeah, because I kind of got in love with the fact that the ultra marathons, well, okay, so what happened was I got a book contract. That's actually what happened, because I was going to run the Columbus Marathon the next year, and I got a book contract, and then I was basically just running around the block for 2 years while I was writing a book and everything. So yeah, and I'm signed up in June to do another ultra marathon. And part of the reason I know this is going to sound weird, that to say that 31 miles is easier than 26.2, but the time limit, races have time limits, and the trail races and the ultra races tend to have longer, more leisurely, but longer limits. And so I'm a slow runner. And so to not feel like I might get pulled off the course for being too slow reduces my anxiety a great deal. And so that's kind of why I've sort of switched from running marathons. I still hope to have another marathon in me someday, but right now the ultras are sort of my love. And this is this crazy 5-mile loop where you just go around, you go 5 miles 6 times, and then you go like out and back once. and there are lots of snacks, and you always know where the bathrooms are. It's for an anxious person, it's really wonderful. So yeah, so that's I think, did I answer both your questions?
Yeah, and
Okay.
Katie is wondering how long was your first ever race?
Oh, that was a 5K, and that was my sister's fault. I did not, our sister's fault, my brother's. I did not ever intend to run in public, never. And I didn't tell anybody I was running for a long time when I first started. That's all in Depression Hates Moving Target. But my niece had died of cancer. My niece, I have two nieces, and one of them had died of cancer a couple years before I started running. And my sister, her mom, after I made the mistake of telling her I was running, said, "Oh, there's this 5K for research for the cancer that Jamie died of. Won't you come with me?" And I went, "Oh, no, 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 I'm a private runner." And so it took me a couple weeks to get over myself and go, she friggin' died. So you can do, you can go in public. So, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but that's kind of where my mental health was. That's how bad it was. And so, so yeah, that was a 5K, and it was the Steps for Sarcoma 5K. And I've done it almost every year since. I missed it a couple times for traveling and stuff. But yeah, and I always say to people, find something, either find a friend that you can challenge, find a 5K that supports, or some kind of activity. I mean, stair climb, whatever, where it's an activity that is for a charity that means something to you, because then you'll do the training and it'll mean more, and you have to find something kind of like pull you toward the event. And for me, that's what it was. It was the fact that it was going to be, and that it was a great race. The family came, and it was really a kind of a cool thing. It's very bittersweet because there were a lot of survivors there, and then of course Jamie wasn't there, so it was sort of a hard thing. We did it a number of years, and now we kind of chose not to do it anymore because it's just too hard. It just is. I mean, she's gone forever, and it's just tough. But yeah, 5K. That's the short answer. Sorry.
We have another question in the chat box from Greg, who is wondering if you could say more about how your videos that led to your book. I believe they are on your Instagram, correct?
Yes, they're actually, I put them all more recently. I reposted them on TikTok, which, I mean, me on TikTok, that's hysterical. But it seemed like a way to kind of repurpose it. So that if on Instagram, you'd have to go way back, way, way back. I think, and they changed Instagram because I used to be able to have a movement meditation channel where you could click on that and see them all, but I can't, I mean, I'm pretty tech savvy and I can't find that anymore. So either they put it someplace I can't find or whatever, but yeah, they were under movement meditation. So probably the best place to see them is on TikTok right now. And I don't think you even have to have, I'm not sure you don't have to post anything on TikTok. You can just, look me up at Nita Sweeney, and they're all there. Plus some other, there's like my dog running around the yard, and I don't know, there's a waterfall. I mean, just different stuff. But there's I put pretty much the whole ones that I have, and I continue to do them, but I haven't done one in a while for a number of reasons, mainly book launch. Hello. So you're busy, and other stuff going on. So, yeah, that's okay. I'm sorry about New Ran not having a TikTok, but yeah. But we have Instagram. I mean, the fact that I have a TikTok is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and it's okay. I feel no pain about anybody not having a TikTok because it's just so ridiculous mostly. Yeah. So, but yeah, well, that's where they would be.
If anyone's curious too, we're a big store here in Portland, but if you are ever online talking to someone, you're talking to me. So I am doing all the social media. I check all the emails. So at this point, I'm stretched thin enough that I'm like, I'll leave the TikTok to the professionals, the ultra marathoners.
We need to leave the TikTok to the people that, like jump off things they shouldn't jump off and somehow live. Those are the ones that get the 10,000 views. I get 100 views or whatever. But yeah. And at one point, I tried to do it. It's sort of like what Jesse said too. I'm a one-person business as an author. I mean, for a while I had a virtual assistant. I really couldn't afford her. I mean, you just don't make that much money. And so I do it all myself. So I throw stuff here, throw stuff there, and it's not as organized as it could be. But yeah, Instagram is where they originally were, and then I posted them all more recently on TikTok. So if you get on there, that's probably the easiest place to find them. And they were on YouTube for a while, and we had to make my channel private because I kept getting all these, I don't know, people that were spamming me and trying to sell their stuff on my stuff. And it was just, and I didn't have the time or the energy to lock that all down. And so I just went, okay. So some of them might still be there, but there's just a few of them there. But thank you for the question, because they're just little good. Yeah.
I did drop the TikTok link in the chat box, and you don't have to log in. You can just go and watch.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, you don't have to. I didn't think you had to even log in. You just go to my account, and I, like I said, the most recent 2 or 3 are not the meditation ones, but maybe 4. I forget how long it's been, but everything before that is all the ones that I have done to date. That's probably the best place. So thank you for the question. It makes me think I really need to compile them, because it was very random, and yet it worked. So. Any other questions here? Let's see. Okay, chat. Yeah.
Maybe while we're waiting to see if anyone has a last question, I can just pop in and say a great big thank you to Jesse and New Renaissance for hosting this beautiful event. And also, of course, to Mango Publishing, who is our publisher. And of course, to Nita for just everything that you give the world, Nita. You've really made left such a beautiful footprint already. And I know there's still so much more to come from you as an author and a teacher. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Sherry. And yes, thank you so much. New Renaissance Books has just been wonderful. I do a lot of different events with podcasters and bookstores and all kinds of stuff, and you guys just have it down. They really know what they're doing, and I hate to say that not everybody does, but it just made my job so easy. So thank you so much. Oops, I just got bumped off the internet. Okay,
You're here.
Am I here?
You're still here.
Okay, that's so funny. Oh my gosh, I got this. Oh, I know what it was. My social media blocker popped up. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I thought, oh my gosh, yeah. So and always a huge thank you to Mango, Brenda Knight, Chris, all the people at Mango Publishing, because they made my my dream come true. I mean, that's been my dream to have a book published, and now we're looking at, you got 3 back there if you count you got journal and BBC Mall, yeah. And so it's amazing. And thank you to Sherry. At some point, Mango is going to start having this thing called the Heart Wisdom Panel again. Sherry did it. It started during the pandemic. Sherry would bring on other Mango authors in conversation, and it was just really powerful. So if you're interested in more Sherry, which you ought to be, that's a place to find her, to stalk her too. So.
If you guys are on Facebook,
Yay,
Mango
thanks,
does have a Facebook page. So
yeah. Oh, thank you, Katie. Yeah, that's great. It's funny because part of what you do as an author is you try to find your audience. And I just keep thinking, my audience is now in their 60s, and they live in Central Ohio, and they love dogs and breakfast, and they run around the block. And that's me. I don't know. So please tell everybody, and then let me know who they are. Yes, I agree. New Renaissance is fabulous.
oh,
Here.
thank you. Yes, New Renaissance. We love you. Really. Thank you so much. We love our
guys
bookstore.
too. Yeah. And that's part of, like you saying, your audience. Like that's the gem of what we get to do, especially at New Ren, because our audience is everyone and anyone. Whether you think you're spiritual, whether you think you can meditate or not, you get to come into a space that is curated for everyone to feel good and just kind of search. And whether you're searching or not, you're going to find gems hidden all over the place from people who, are just like you. So we're very grateful for Mango for having a great relationship with us and allowing us to offer these sweet free events where you get to sit down and get juicy and chat with wonderful humans. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Do, 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 do. All right, well, it's a few minutes past. If Sherry, do you have any last questions you want to get off your chest? I'm sure you could keep going for a while.
Yeah, we were thinking we could talk for a couple of hours about this.
I want to have just one more question. Thank you. Jesse, you could see it was just like there. So Nita, I really want to hear just, and it could be quick because I know we're over time, but does writing count as moving meditation, or where does writing fit with your meditation?
Yes. So I always talk about the trifecta, or the three-legged stool of my mental health toolkit. And we talked about running, we talked about meditation, and the third one is writing as a meditative practice. Now, I studied with a woman named Natalie Goldberg for many years now, and I was actually her assistant for 9.5, almost 10 years. And she's a Zen practitioner, and she combined writing and meditation by using the same container of a timed period, which I actually didn't talk about that, but I talk about that in this book, of using a container, a timed period of, choosing that, and then keeping your hand moving while you're writing. Sometimes you have a topic, sometimes you don't. And so the way that fits with this book is that I write about my movement, or I write about my meditation. Sometimes it's it's a reflective practice. And I also, so that's where it started, was more of a reflective practice. You start with topics like I remember, or I'm thinking of, or I'm not thinking of, or, things like that. And you just go for 10 minutes and let it download. And sometimes you end up writing, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say, just bring that until something eventually pops up from the well. And so I do that with my movement. I write about what dogs I saw, what I chose as my object of meditation, what if my leg hurt, if my if I was running with a friend and her pack was rubbing and irritating, it's just like anything, or if it was wonderful, all that kind of stuff. So that's how they all kind of go together for me, because it's sort of another way to process my emotions. I'm a very emotional, highly empathic person. And so it's a way for me to process what's going on, because I often feel like just living in the world for me is like drinking from a fire hose all the time. It's just, I have a hard time shutting off the input that most people just naturally shut off. It comes at me like twice as fast. So that's a way to process it. So.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you, Jesse, for letting me ask that. I felt like there was something really important. That was beautiful. It was really beautiful to hear.
Thank you. It's been, it was a gift from Natalie Goldberg. She just was a really important, still is a very important. I'm still in contact with her. And yeah, thanks for the question. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we probably gotta go. Yeah.
Well,
do we have to go? We just stay on.
We have a lot of thank yous in the chat, and thank you for being here, which really we appreciate both Nita and Sherry for just allowing this space for us to, discover things that we didn't know about meditation and we didn't know about ourselves. Like I said in the chat, we've got Nita's latest book and Sherry's in store in hard copies. We've got all of the books in our online shop, which you can check out at our website, newrenbooks.com. I will be sending this recording to everyone after we're finished, and I'll send the links that I had in the chat to everyone as well. So check your emails tomorrow, not tonight. And if that's it, I just want to say, a very heartfelt thank you to everyone who joined us, and I hope you have a happy Friday Eve.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thanks, everybody. This has been great. Thanks.
Thank you. Mwah.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jim.
Oh.